Let's talk about the best legion of Space Marines, the Ultramarines. The poster boys of the poster boys, the Ultramarines are the guys you'll see on almost every box of Space Marines, and for good reason. They are pretty cool. Among the strictest adherents of the Codex Astartes, a fact that their dad has been tirelessly working to remedy, the Ultramarines are one of the most important and influential chapters in the current day of the setting. Let's get into why, shall we? So, who are the Ultramarines? Well, where most of the original legions had a specific purpose, such as Blood Angels and World Eaters specialising in close assault, and Iron Warriors and Imperial Fists specialising in the different aspects of siege warfare, the Ultramarines were kinda like the Dark Angels, in that they could do a bit of pretty much anything. Unlike the Dark Angels, though, the Ultramarines emphasised flexibility on an individual level, rather than having groupings of each type of specialist within the Legion. The 13th Legion, as they were known before being reunited with their primarch, Roboute Guilliman, were created late in the Unification Wars, late enough that they have no recorded combat operations on Terra itself. They were created using gene seed that was remarkably unremarkable. Absent of mutation, perhaps uniquely among the various gene seeds, and highly adaptable, the Ultramarines gene seed allowed the Legion to recruit from a highly varied pool of recruits on Terra. The one common factor that the Legion's recruits shared was that their cultures had all fiercely resisted unification, not surrendering to the forces of the Emperor, but instead being almost completely wiped out. During the early days of the Great Crusade, the 13th became known as the Warborn, a title that goes unreasonably hard. I don't know why they would ever change that to Ultramarines, and referred to their disparate origins that had been brought together through shared conflict. By the time they were reunited with their gene father, the Warborn had grown to over 30,000 Astartes, though they were feeling a little insecure, mainly due to heavy casualties taken during the Osiris Rebellion, where they lost 6,500 warriors to an ambush by the Xenos species known as the Osirian Cybrids. Ghostly little mist guys, they would be a pretty cool faction to have in the modern setting, but unfortunately they were wiped out by Roboute Guilliman. Spoilers. Like most of the primarchs, Guilliman was taken from the Emperor's laboratory on Terra, either by the forces of Chaos or by his mom, Erda. The capsule containing the infant 13th primarch landed on Macragge, where it was found by a group of noblemen hunting in the forest, and taken to Conor. One of the two consuls who governed Macragge, Conor adopted the child as his own, and named him Roboute. By the way, you are going to notice some non-too-subtle parallels with Rome in Macragge, just go with it. As a primarch, Guilliman was immediately the most impressive person on Macragge, even compared to Conor, who was also kind of a big deal. Think the Lion and Luther. By age 10, he had already outgrown the teachings of even the wisest on Macragge, with stunning insights into history, philosophy and science. Again, there are parallels with the other primarchs. Keep in mind that various aspects of this have been similar to the Lion and to Perty. We'll come back to it later. Guilliman's greatest talents, however, were as a military leader, a fact which led to his father giving him command of the campaign to take Illyrium. A mountainous region to the north of the planet, Illyrium's wild inhabitants had raided the southern regions for years, and had successfully resisted every previous campaign. Roboute, however, fought a brilliant campaign, and managed to earn the respect of the barbarians, who never again threatened the rest of Macragge. Unfortunately for Big Bobby G, on his return he found that Conor's co-consul, Gallen, had attempted a coup, leading a faction of Macragge's nobility, who enjoyed a position of power at the expense of their slaves, and who were therefore upset at Conor, who had passed various legislation favouring the common people. By the time Roboute made it to the capital, it was already in the process of being sacked, and Conor in the process of being mortally wounded by one of Galen's assassins. Rob swiftly crushed the rebellion, executing Galen and his co-conspirators, redistributing their wealth to the people, and assuming the title of sole consul of Macragge. Using his new position, Guilliman reorganised Macragge into a meritocracy, where office and honours were given to the hard-working rather than the wealthy. Interestingly, if you view Macragge as an allegory for Rome, that would make the dynamic between Conor, Galen and Guilliman a blend of Gaius Marius, Sulla and Caesar, and Caesar, Pompey and Augustus, favouring the latter thruple but with elements of both. I prefer Guilliman as an Augustus analogue because, as far as I'm aware, there isn't a Guilliman salad. While Roboute was at war in Illyria, the Emperor of Mankind had reached the nearby planet of Espandor and had heard stories of the extraordinary son of Conor, who he recognised as one of his lost sons. However, his ships were caught in a warp storm and thrown off course, and by the time he reached Macragge, it had been under Guilliman's rule for almost half a decade. Emps found a world that was self-sufficient, prosperous, with a strong and well-equipped military, and engaging in trade with nearby star systems. Impressive even for a Primarch. Big E quickly assigned command of the 13th Legion to his newest son, and moved the Legion's forward base to Macragge. Moving back to the point I raised earlier, and kinda just left hanging there, Guilliman has a remarkable amount of parallels to the other Primarchs, but due to various factors, managed to remain a hell of a lot more grounded than many of his brothers. Like the Lion and Luther, Guilliman had a mentor figure in Conor. Both Conor and Luther were extraordinary by the standards of their worlds, and both Conor and Luther were quickly overshadowed by the Primarchs that they adopted. Unlike Luther, however, who grew resentful of the Lion and nicked half of his legion, Conor was unbelievably proud of Guilliman, and was just a generally supportive and good dad, leaving Guilliman without any daddy issues, which is quite frankly unheard of with the Primarchs. Like Perturabo, Guilliman was at once both a gifted military commander and interested in history and science. Unlike Perturabo, however, Guilliman was not viewed solely as a commander, but was encouraged to pursue his other interests, growing into arguably the best statesman among his brothers, rather than an insecure man-child who just needed a hug. Like Angron, Guilliman was incredibly angry at times, as Lorgar and the Word-Bearers can attest to. Angron even states that, were he raised on Macragge and Guilliman on New Syria, they would be borderline indistinguishable. Guilliman mirrors his brothers in a lot of ways, but due to the environment that he was raised in, he managed to avoid many of the flaws that the other Primarchs embody. With Guilliman at their head, the Ultramarines were among the most effective legions during the Great Crusade, with only Horus's Lunar Wolves conquering as many worlds and leaving them in as good a state. Robbie gave his legion a pep talk and made them feel better after the Osiris Rebellion, and later wiped out the Xenos Cybrids at the Battle of the Eurydice Terminal. Whenever Guilliman and his legion conquered a world, they would not move on until they had set up a solid defense system, industry, trade routes, and a government concerned with the well-being of the people. They prided themselves on achieving strategic goals with minimum expenditure of life, even extending to the enemy, assuming they were a salvageable human civilization. They were good by the standards of space racists, but they were still space racists. The gene seed of the Ultramarines, in addition to allowing them to recruit at a rate far beyond the other legions, gave their warriors a mixture of aggression and restraint, discipline and determination that made them uniquely suited for joint operations and cross-theatre warfare. As the Ultramarines expanded the borders of the Imperium, so too did the realm of Ultramar expand, centred around Macragge. Guilliman created a supremely efficient military machine that could provide his legion with a steady flow of recruits, allowing the Ultramarines to grow into the largest of the legions. They had also probably taken in warriors from the two missing legions around this time. They were so large, in fact, that they needed an organisational unit above the company, leading to the creation of various chapters, at least 20 135 by the time of the Battle of Calth. This put them at around 250,000 Space Marines by the time of the Horus Heresy, which is just ridiculous by the standards of the modern day of the setting, where there are probably only somewhere between 1 and 2 million Loyalist Astartes between every single chapter. Before Horus openly declared his rebellion against the Imperium, he used his position as War Master to order the Ultramarines Legion to assemble with the Word-Bearers in the Viridian system, under the pretense of stopping an Orc invasion. As Ultramar was, by the standards of space travel, next door, Guilliman would draw up his legion alongside Lorgar's in the Calth system. Unfortunately, the Word-Bearers would attack the Ultramarines while their shields were down. Bet you weren't expecting that. It's worth noting that Aenid Thiel, an Ultramarine sergeant, had been formally marked for censure just before this battle, because he brought up the idea of Space Marines studying how to fight other Space Marines, as, in his words, they were the foremost warriors in the galaxy. When the Word-Bearers attack, he is in Guilliman's personal armory without a weapon, waiting for the Primarch to see him. I don't think Guilliman knew why he was being censured, and I'm pretty sure he thought the whole thing was absolutely ridiculous when he found out. And, thinking that he was already in trouble, and it couldn't get much worse, he decided to ransack the armory in order to get a weapon to fight the Word-Bearers. Thiel is the reason that Ultramarine sergeants have red helmets. It was originally used as a mark of shame for censored Marines until after this battle. In the same book, Guilliman is originally adamant that Lorgar's attack on his fleet was accidental, that there was a miscommunication somewhere, and broadcasts a message over the Vox asking Lorgar what happened and begging him to stop. After he finds proof that the attack was premeditated, though, he replaces that broadcast. "Rescind my previous looped broadcast," he says, taking the speaker horn. "Replace it with this." He hesitates, thinking, and then lifts his head and speaks cleanly and quickly into the device. "Lorgar of Colchis, you may consider the following. 1. I entirely withdraw my previous offer of solemn ceasefire. It is cancelled and will not be made again, to you or to any of your motherless bastards. 2. You are no longer any brother of mine. I will find you, I will kill you, and I will hurl your toxic corpse into hell's mouth. I will kill him. I will literally kill him with my bare hands." Then he tells Lorgar that he wishes the Emperor had fed him to Russ, gets vented into space, and punches some Word-Bearers to death while wall-riding a spaceship. Read No Fear, please. Although the Battle of Calth was technically an Ultramarine victory, it was undeniably a Pyrrhic one. Nearly 120,000 Marines were lost, with almost another 30,000 combat incapable. It also led to the Shadow Crusade, where the Word-Bearers and World Eaters tag-teamed Ultramar and created the Ruin Storm, making warp travel very difficult, if not outright impossible, for the Loyalists over much of the galaxy. Fearing Terra lost and the Emperor dead, Guilliman used his legion and the realm of Ultramar to create the Imperium Secundus, with the aid of Sanguinius and the Lion. After a number of disasters, including Conrad Kurz escaping onto the planet and Vulcan falling out of the sky, a greater number of clashes between the 3 leading Primarchs, and some impeccable logic by the Lion, Imperium Secundus would be dissolved, and the Loyalist forces would make for Terra, though only Sanguinius would arrive in time to participate in the siege. After the Heresy, the surviving Ultramarines accounted for over half of all the Loyalist Marines remaining, and Guilliman would be appointed Lord Commander of the Imperium, reorganising the Council of Terra into a governing body capable of functioning without the Emperor. The greatest of Guilliman's reforms during this time was the Codex Astartes, a fun little book that laid out a template for all the tactics and organisations of Space Marines, who would henceforth be divided into 1,000 strong chapters, each with their own name and heraldry. In doing so, Guilliman hoped to divide the Space Marines such that no one man, or Primarch I suppose, could command as many troops as Horus had done. The Khan and Corax both supported the Codex, while Dawn, Vulcan and Russ opposed the splitting of their legions, though 2/3 of those would would eventually relent. After pottering about the galaxy for a few more years, rescuing Dawn after he got absolutely shit on by Percy at the Battle of the Iron Cage, and apparently killing Alpharius, but he didn't, it was almost certainly just some random bloke, Guilliman would fall at the Battle of Thessala. Mortally wounded by kinky snake demon Fulgrim, Guilliman was put into stasis by his gene sons on Macragge, where he remained for the next 10,000 years. With their primarch gone, the Ultramarines devolved into religious worship of the Codex Astartes, viewing it as the blessed word of their divine father. Bit ironic that the hyperflexible non-specialist legion that hated the word-bearers fell into strict dogmatic adherence to a book, but that's besides the point. More to the point, the Codex was originally supposed to only be a template that each chapter could add to and revise as they saw fit, and Guilliman on his return was a bit disappointed that they were so rigid with it. They did at least remain among the more humane of the chapters, as they were used to working closely with the ordinary human population of Ultramar, and so viewed any human life, no matter how insignificant, as sacred and worthy of protection, striving to uphold Guilliman's beliefs about the common good. They also fought a series of wars against the Tyranids during this time, imaginatively named the Tyrannic Wars. They happened, and during them Calgar killed the Swarmlord with his bare hands. That's all I'm going to say on the matter, but I do just want you to know that I feel very bad for the Swarmlord and for Tyranids fans. If you want to read more into what the chapter was doing before the return of Big Bobby G, the Uriel Ventris books are well worth a read. I listened to the first one as part of my research for this video to make sure I had an accurate vibe of what was going on, and it was pretty fun. Since his resurrection during the 13th Black Crusade, again, there's no need to go into too much detail right now, it's basically enough to just say that he's back up and running. He is unable to pick up paper though. Guilliman has been working to fix his legion's more strict beliefs, reminding them that the Codex Astartes, while a good tactically sound baseline, is far from infallible, and tactical flexibility is far more important than rigid adherence. He has also released its second edition with the introduction of Primaris Marines, making several adjustments such as bringing back lieutenants. A lot of lieutenants. He also had a very hard job figuring out what year it actually was, which was quite fun. Learning that the Imperial calendar could be off by as much as 1,000 years. Following the creation of the Cicatrix Maledictum, a massive warp storm splitting the galaxy in half and constantly vomiting out hordes of demons, Guilliman and the Primaris Marines launched the Indomitus Crusade. Supported by the Custodes, Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence, and the Imperial Guard, the Indomitus Crusade fleets spread out from Terra to bring waves of Primaris reinforcements, along with the technology and knowledge needed to create more, to the Astartes chapters attempting to defend the Imperium. This was when the events of the Dark Imperium books happened, with Guilliman fighting Mortarion and burning the Garden of Nurgle with the help of a little bit of Big E possession. And that has pretty much been the status quo of the Ultramarines since, helping Guilliman rule the galaxy and running around killing demons, orcs, necrons and tyranids, and some elves. So that was the 13th Legion, the Ultramarines. Their history, primarch, cultural inspirations, and current antics. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. It really does mean a lot. A huge special thank you to my channel members, Vort and Cersei, for supporting me. Like, subscribe, all the rest, and I'll see you in the next video. Making several adjustments, such as bringing back lieutenants. A lot of lieutenants. Is that how you say that?